What are you saying, everyone? We're back once again for another one of these ridiculous recounts of substance abuse. There was no abuse going on here. This is actually a perfect example of experimentation. Oh, we're off to a good start again. Fucking, that's become tradition now. So this time we're going to talk about the first ever instance of me using 4-ACO DMT, which I've actually only ever used twice. I've made my second time I actually did it. I made a trip report back when I used to actually write them. I need to start doing that again because people seem to enjoy the way I structured it. But I've definitely been going more with these more laid back, casual discussions as of late. Although I definitely could do switching it up because we're already a minute in and I've barely even said anything. So, what is 4-ACO DMT? Fully, it's 4-acetoxy N,N-dimethyltryptamine, also known as psilocybin or synthetic mushrooms, and it's a novel, lesser-known psychedelic substance of the tryptamine class. It's structurally related to psilocybin and psilocin, the active ingredient in psilocybin mushrooms. Although personally, in my experience, comparing the effects of traditional psilocybin mushrooms and 4-ACO DMT, it's completely foreign experience to me. There was very, very little similarities for me personally, which also is another great way of demonstrating that something that a lot of people, psychonauts, don't understand on YouTube, which is really upsetting, that everyone's experiences are different based upon your genetic makeup, your like ego baggage, your diet, every single thing in your life. Like literally every single minor little thing adds up to produce a subjective experience when you use one of these chemicals. So it's like the thing with cannabis that Tales from the Trip was talking about recently, where some people can smoke weed and just be couch locked and just be absolutely stoned out of their mind, just have all the relaxing physical effects. Someone can have like 2 tokes in a joint and start getting like fractals and having like ego dissolution experiences. It's completely possible. And for me personally, with 4-ACO DMT, my experience with it probably isn't going to be like most people's, because most individuals seem to say that it has a lot of comparative effects to magic mushrooms, which I didn't get. For me, it was like what I imagined DMT to be like, except stretched over however long the duration was. I think the duration was about it was around 3.5 hours for the peak, I'd say, in both instances. What was interesting about it is that the first time that I ever had it, it was just in this really very fragile little flat pill, and I think it was around 25 milligrams. So that's like just on the higher end of a common dose, it's a lower strong dose, not quite a heavy dose. The second time I took it was like 90 milligrams, which is it was insane. That was the most insane psychedelic experience I've ever had in my life. It was all of the mental, mystical shit we talk about on this channel and that I cover with the trip reports. I was flying around a fucking like blue cosmic galaxy that was orbiting this like supermassive black hole. I became this energy being. There was this woman who was both old and young, and she was guiding me and telling me, consciousness has always been here, it created itself, it's exploring itself in infinite ways. It was just all of that sort of like God consciousness, non-duality stuff that is explored in the extreme trip reports that we cover. But this first time I ever took it, me and my mate JP, he was having a little sesh at his house, and the person we used to get it off, he'd recently come into contact with someone who could supply it. So we were like, all right, yeah, go on. And you never really find like exotic psychedelics around where we live, and we don't really have access to like DMT or stuff like that. It's only ever been like LSD, mushrooms, 2CB, and just something random like say 4-ACO coming into supply with the people we know who have this sort of stuff. And this guy sorted us out with just one of these pills each, and he just said, just take it easy on these, it can be quite strong. And he said he again described it as being similar to psilocybin, because a lot, it has been theorized to act as a prodrug to psilocin in a manner similar to psilocybin, which may account for the similarity in effects of people. And obviously these The effects include like geometric visual effects, time distortion, enhanced introspection, holy shit, euphoria, and ego loss. So, but yeah, for me personally, like it felt like, it did feel a bit like artificial mushrooms in a sense, but the visuals that we're having were way more DMT like or LSD like, rather than the sort of soft like cartoonish visuals I get on mushrooms. It really wasn't like psilocybin in that sense. It had way more entheogenic properties for me. So entheogens are a family of psychedelics that are used in like religious, spiritual, or ritual context, and it really did feel like that. It felt extremely profound. Not saying I haven't had profound experiences of mushrooms, but a lot of my experiences of mushrooms have been sort of like the mushrooms have been like guiding me, almost like they've got a personality, like this cartoonish, animated personality. It's like that anthropomorphized, or however you say it. My pronunciations have been terrible as of late. What is that about? But 4-ACO DMT really felt like, just right, let's get straight to the point. You are this eternal source of, you're a nodal point of infinite consciousness that's individuated from infinity. I was getting all these sort of vibes. But what was funny about when we first took it, we were absolutely couch locked out our head, me and my mate JP, and everything was just going on around us. Like, he was having sort of a party, and people were like turning up at the house that sort of weren't like invited. They were just walking through the door like saying like, "Oh, hi guys," and we were like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then his dog also had escaped, I believe, and obviously we were like shitting it, like, "Oh my god, what the fuck's going on?" But also sort of like pissing ourselves at the same time, because it was making us like laugh our asses off. But the visuals were just like increasing. It was getting really hard to like make out what was going on. And there was a great deal of confusion, mostly due to the setting that we were in. We were actually lucky not to have a bad trip, to be fair, because it was sort of like the worst possible setting you could have. Like, the dog was loose, people running around the gaff, people turning up sort of uninvited that thought they were invited and shit. And everyone else was all on like different substances and on their own like crazy trips. And we were just literally like fucking landlocked to this sofa, just having to bask in the madness, and people having to go outside and run after the dog and try and find it. And obviously JP, it was literally his dog, so I bet in his head he was shitting it. But physically we were just pissing ourselves and just absolutely just couldn't believe like how insanely intense it was, just off one of these like tiny little like pellets basically. There was a strange body high of 4-ACO DMT, and it was like sometimes pleasurable and warm, but also sort of like electric feeling, a bit like with LSD, like very tingling, which in some sense could be slightly uncomfortable. There wasn't massive amounts of euphoria for me. It was just like it just insane amounts of introspection. And obviously there was a massive amount of empathy and interconnectivity going on between all of us, and there was also a tactile enhancement. Everything felt very sort of itchy and tingly, and a bit ticklish. Everything you touched sort of like you were hypersensitive to. But yeah, the funniest part of it was definitely the fits of laughter, like the sense of humour and elevated sense of like music appreciation was just unbelievably hilarious. There was more of like a cognitive euphoria than a physical euphoria going on for me, rather than like the physical euphoria you can get on like mushrooms, where it literally just feels like being like massaged into like the cosmos. This is more of a like cognitive euphoria where I was like just so utterly amazed and like pleased with how life was at that very moment. Rather than my physical body getting it, it was more of like my mental state, if that makes any sense. Not snens. Holy fuck, making new words now. The come up itself was actually quite rough, I think. When I recall, both times I did it was quite rough. You get the classic feelings of impending doom on the come up, and yeah, this is why it's obviously extremely important to have a positive and well-informed mindset going in. But usually after the come up, as soon as you get into the peak, it was just absolutely sound. Even the second time, which was rough, like, I mean, it was literally 90 milligrams, and I don't know if you've watched that report, which you should. It was probably like the most fucked up thing I've ever experienced in my life, but also extremely grateful for it. It was really that beautiful twisted mixture of like positive and negative, but it came out and in the end being like the most positive, like awe-inspiring thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like my consciousness has never experienced anything like that whilst being sort of like lucid. Obviously I've had in crazy dreams and experiences of being in other dimensions and dreams and mad shit, but that was like to have actually experienced that directly in a heightened level of consciousness was absolutely insane. What else can I sort of talk about? Oh, the visual effects of it were very, like, they were getting all the classic, like, colour shifting, colour tinting, there was a lot of drifting, there was a very highly detailed, realistic, slow and smooth in motion and static in appearance, all the melting, flowing, breathing and morphing sort of visuals. Very, again, it just felt very different to me from mushrooms. So I sort of got like an orange tint to my experience both times as well. Really interesting. I believe at some point after the peak, when we were sort of in the afterglow phase, we also obviously decided to have a biff or a joint or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this just as a word of warning, I personally think that you should be very cautious when combining cannabis with psychedelics like 4-ACO and LSD and DMT, because it can really be a 50-50. Use it with extreme caution. It can seriously increase the risk of experiencing a bad trip because it can exacerbate feelings of anxiety, confusion and psychosis. Personally, yeah, I don't even know how that didn't turn out badly for us the first time, but I think it's because we were like super stoners that we're sort of like numb to the effects of cannabis. It literally didn't give us any anxiety. But again, for me, ever since my second 4-ACO DMT trip now, I now do get anxiety on cannabis. Not only just from that trip, but also just from overuse and just getting older and growing as a person. I know a lot of people get angry at me for saying that cannabis can be addicting, but for me it has been, and if for you it hasn't, then that's great. But again, just like to reiterate at the beginning of the video, everyone's reactions to substances are different, and you need to respect that. If you don't understand that people can have varying experiences on substances and they can be wildly, radically, almost unfathomably different, then you need to do more research into psychedelics and anecdotal reports, because they all vary so much. I mean, if you've been watching this channel, I don't understand how some people still don't grasp that the subjectivity of these experiences can be so extreme. It's actually insane. Like, again, I took 90 milligrams of this substance and I fucking literally like was flying around like the Milky Way galaxy, and I was completely disconnected from my own body, and someone could take it and then just be sat there and not experience like anything, just have some traces or whatever. So yeah, it just shows you that yeah, everything's very subjective, mate. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'm sorry I couldn't remember more. This was actually years ago. It was like four or so years ago when I first took 4-ACO, and I didn't end up coming into contact with it again until early last year, because again, it's just one of them substances that's just so exotic that it just randomly appears every now and then. You find someone that's got a hold of it, so you've got to seize the opportunity. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll wrap it up and do some more personal stories again. Got a lot more up my sleeve, lad. So yeah, get yourself buckled up.